Hi everyone, welcome. I am going to offer a short practice about a pose that I really love. And so I'll say first that if you're hoping for sun salutations and to move your body in a lot of different directions, this might not be the perfect video for you. I have lots of those. But if you're hoping to fine tune your triangle pose, trikonasana, then I have some tips that I'd like to share, some things that I really like. So let's start on our backs, and before you go there, it will be very useful for you to have a strap, could be a belt or a hand towel, and then one or two blocks if you have two. And then we're going to come and lie down on our backs. We can start with the knees bent and have one of your blocks right on the outside of your, let's start with the right, of your right hip, and then stretch the right leg. And with your strap or your towel, we will place the strap around the arch of the foot. Would be totally fine. We're not going to get too detail-oriented about that. And then you can take a moment here, take a couple of breaths. Let your belly be as soft as possible. Shoulders soft, and see if you can have the arms be relatively straight. And then if you're feeling fairly comfortable here and you'd like to straighten the left leg, go for it. And we're just really opening the hamstring to prepare for triangle pose. The part of the leg that we really want to have open for triangle pose is, of course, the inner thigh. So with the block, I really like the block here. We're going to slide the block all the way in. So it's going to catch in the upper thigh bone. And then bring both of the straps into your right hand. Slightly turn your toes out. And then with your left arm out to the side, a little bit of a counterbalance. Just let your leg come over. Flex your ankle. And then if you get here and you feel like you're not getting sufficient stretch, then you can move the block farther down the leg, closer to the knee. Or if you're getting too much stretch, then use two blocks or increase the height, or you could just let it go. And then we'll stay here for a few breaths with the leg open. This is very much like triangle pose right here. See how well you can keep the left thigh grounded. And what will help with that is some energy, some engagement, flexing the ankle, reaching out through the heel, and then actively see if you can press the left thigh down. And take a couple of deep breaths. All right, and then let's bring the leg back up to center. Bring your left foot to meet the right, and we'll repeat, second side. So however you like to have the leg, knee bent or straight is fine. Switch your block to the other side. This leg might be different, so you might start with the block high and then move it as you need. But we will stay a couple breaths like we did before here. This pose is called Supta Pada Gustasana, which is reclined hand to foot pose. We're not probably going to get our hand to the toe. So now, left hand fairly close to the foot. Turn the toes out a little bit, and the thigh bone will turn too. That's what we're really after. And then we'll let that leg come out any amount to the left. And then here too, you can see, I would like for you to stretch. So if you're not feeling stretched, the leg is too high, you can slide the block a little farther down the leg, get your sweet spot so that the leg is catching onto something. We're still quite engaged here. So I'm reaching out pretty strongly through the left heel and the right heel. And I like to think about how heavy can I make the right grounded leg, push the thigh bone down. Sometimes I might even feel a stretch in the front of the right pelvis on the right side, on the opposite side. Not today, but often. And that's really a nice feeling for me and a nice reminder of how connected everything is. So we can say, well, we're stretching our adductors, the left leg, and then really we realize you can't do that without affecting really everything else. How about one more deep breath? Good. And then we'll bring it up and let it go. Let's, if you like, you could just take a couple of little windshield wipers with the legs, a little bit of a twist action, a little opening up. And then go ahead and roll on up. We're going to come to stand. We're going to get right into it. So from standing, let's find nice, comfortable Tadasana. If you like, close your eyes. Feel your body. Feel a sense of steadiness, groundedness. See if you can soften a bit in the belly so that you still feel like you're supporting your body and you're staying upright in space in a way that feels strong and also soft. So softness in the belly. You can take a full deep breath. We haven't lost that. There's no rigidity. And then go ahead and let your eyes open. Let's step the feet fairly wide apart. And we'll do one forward fold here. Again, sort of opening up. But really, I think if I had to say one thing about this entire tutorial that I'm hoping that we learn about triangle pose is how to get the pelvis really moving smoothly and gliding over the heads of the femur bone. So we're really focused in this pose all about the pelvis and less about movement in the spine. We do a lot of that. And for this pose, we're going to do something different. So go ahead and bring your hands to your hips and see if you can just feel here we're moving back and forth in space, which is different. So a little bit of a tuck, a little bit of an untuck, and feel your pelvis as it moves back and forth, back and forth. So this is one direction that we can move our hips. And then the next time that you feel your hips tilting forward, go ahead and complete the action. Come down. You can bring your hands under your shoulders or to blocks if that's better. And then relax, let your spine round, let your head be heavy. Take a couple of deep breaths. And then come up a little bit. Turn the toes out some, and then we'll just rock back and forth. Bend one knee, bend the other knee, go slow. There's no need. We're not going to try to get into any big pose here. That's not the point today. Just opening up. Feel how your pelvis rocks from side to side in space. Not a lot of movement happening probably between the femur bones and the hip joint, but just moving the pelvis, and then go ahead and come all the way up. Step your feet a little bit wider than hip distance. Toes are out, heels are in. Bring your hands to your hips, and then we'll make hip circles. So now, for sure, I hope that you're feeling how the pelvis can roll over the heads of the femur bone as you move in space in circles. You might feel some popping or even hear some popping. I think that's really good. Let's change the direction. A lot of this is about keeping a lot of mobility, fluidity, smoothness in the hip joint, which is often bearing quite a bit of weight and often a little bit more static and in a place of constriction, flexion than we might like. So things can get sort of stuck. All right, come back, stand in Tadasana, and then one more time we'll take a quick pause, feel your body. Feel your breath. And then any kind of relaxation through the shoulders and the belly without losing a sense of steadiness. And then step your feet wide apart again. The distance is up to you. And I should say too, as we're stepping, let's go ahead and grab our blocks. Take a wide stance. Put one block behind each ankle. And then we'll turn the right toes out, left toes in. And before we start, hands on hips again. And before we move the pelvis front and back, and now we're going to move the pelvis side to side. So the spine is coming along for the ride. I'm not doing any side bending here. You might see that my spine follows the pelvis. So it's just the pelvis back and forth in this lateral direction. And this really is the heart of triangle pose. So I could take a long conversational break to discuss how I feel about alignment. I'll save you that. I'll just say that alignment for me is more about body awareness and about ways of feeling deeply into poses that are super pleasurable, where I can really feel the essence of what I'm trying to do and what the asana is trying to teach and offer. Okay, so pause for a sec. In this pose, trikonasana, what the asana is offering us is a sense of openness, stability, ease, and just this wide open space. And we lose that if we forget that the pose is in the pelvis. That's where the pose is. So not so much side bending. We do a lot of side bending of the spine in yoga. Yes, we're side bending, but we're focusing on the pelvis. And then the other piece is to remember that the pelvis is three-dimensional. It's a bowl. So it doesn't only rock like this or like this. It also can rotate a bit. So you might rotate just a little bit your pelvis. Again, spine is going along for the ride. We're not needing to do any spinal twists. And then when you find a point where your back hip is forward a little bit, then stay. And then remember the sensation of the lateral movement through the pelvis. Your spine is neutral. And then please use the block. Since what I believe to be and what I feel in my body about the pose is that I want the chest to be open, the spine to be neutral, then I think bringing the block on the inside, which I see a lot, actually closes that off. It closes off the bottom shoulder. So I like the block on the outside of the foot. And then also to let go of any idea around where the hand is supposed to end up, totally irrelevant. Instead, let's just have the pose be about the pelvis. So lateral bend and the back hip forward a little bit. And then there we are. And you might even, once you arrive, begin to rotate a bit more the left shoulder over the right. Turn the gaze up. Are we between two panes of glass? Absolutely not. Why would we be? It's a three-dimensional body. It's a three-dimensional pose. And so particularly in the hip and in the left side of the hip right now, there might be some tendency, probably because you've been told this before, to push that hip back. And I would really encourage you actually the opposite. Go ahead and let the hip drop. And then you might even notice how when the hip drops, you get even longer and more space there in that right hip crease. Okay. And then if you like, for a minute, might be familiar, to do, sometimes we do, which is fingertips, we want them to come to the floor, and then we come into a bend in the spine. So you see this, and I see it a lot. In fact, I'll see it a lot with the hand on the inside. And then how does this feel in your body? Just notice. Maybe it feels better. Maybe it feels better because it's familiar. You'll have to decide. And then one more time, we're going to come back into the triangle pose, giving support to our arm so that there's plenty of room here for the neutral spine. And what we're really focusing on is that movement in the pelvis. All right. And then press through your feet and up you come. Let's switch sides. So going right into it. If you have two blocks, your block is already there. Get rid of that one. We'll start with the same little instructions about movement that we did. So first with this lateral, the pelvis is simply moving from side to side. As you come forward, your hip crease deepens. This is an important element. And as you come back, it becomes a little bit more shallow. And so for sure, when we do triangle pose, a deep hip crease is probably a good indication that we're getting our maximal lateral tilt over the leg. Do this 2 or 3 more times. We did it a lot on the first side because I started talking, which is not uncommon. All right, and then come back up. And then the other movement that we're going to be doing simultaneously in the pose is the rotation of the pelvis. So see how you can rotate the pelvis, not about rotating the spine, not a spinal twist. The action is all here. Well, it doesn't go very far because our feet are planted, but just a little bit it goes. And you can see you're looking straight ahead. You're looking probably diagonally off to the side, rotation. And then we're going to put together these two actions to come into the pose. So start with the rotation where your gaze starts to go towards the diagonal and the back hip is forward. And then find the lateral bend in the hips that deepens the hip crease. Keep the spines just along for the ride. Hand comes to some height. So if your height means that you drop your shoulders, then that's fine, but it's not really what I'm teaching right now. We want this really neutral spine and for the action to be in this really interesting and strong region of our body that is important to keep nice and supple. So even more than pushing the hip back, which we're often taught, maybe even a little bit more, you bring it forward and you might notice a release there in the hip crease and the top of the thigh. Roll the shoulder back. Stretch the fingertips if you like. And then you might find that, especially if you even find a little bit more neutral spine ever so slightly, you might feel the tops of the hip joints come towards the ribs, and you might find a little bit more of this opening through the chest, and the gaze perhaps goes towards the ceiling. Relax your head. The relaxing the head, especially if you're looking up, is important. Otherwise, it's an invitation for neck tension. Take a couple of breaths. Notice how you feel. How does the pose feel here? Do you feel this openness? Maybe you don't. That's okay. And then let's try how many of us have been doing. I'm not saying one's better than the other. I'm saying here's an element, here's an additional layer to the pose that you might enjoy. So yeah, we want the hand to reach the floor, right? We're programmed to get to what we view as the end point. And then already my gaze is down, my right chest is facing down. So I've lost that feeling of openness. My spine has rounded. And so even if I crank my chest open, it's just not the same. And some people even will do all of that. And then also the front hand, the bottom hand will come forward too. And then there's even more collapse. So notice that. And then come out. Less is more. Come out. Hands do not need to go anywhere. They could be at the thigh. This would be a really lovely pose. This is the least important part of the pose, is where the hand ends up. Take a couple of breaths. And then press through the feet, come up to stand, and parallel your feet a little bit. Step the feet together. Pause, close your eyes if that's comfortable, and let's feel this region of the body, the hips and the pelvis, tops of the thigh bones. How are they feeling now? Did you notice something qualitatively different about the pose in this variation? And if you did, bring to mind what it was that really brought that into your body, into that sense of where you are in space and the quality of that shape. Did you learn something about the way that the pelvis moves that's helpful? And then let's close this short practice by bringing the hands together at the center of the heart. Take one last moment here. Feel your body. Feel the inside of your body. Not just the hips and pelvis, but the entire body, soles of feet, crown of head. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace in the world. Peace in our communities and our families. Peace in our hearts. When you're ready, release your hands, allow your eyes to open. Okay, short little bit about triangle pose. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you found something useful. And so come back and see me sometime. Bye-bye.